Chefs of the Future, COF Nation, welcome. My name is Rich, and this is Chefs of the Future, where we talk about our favorite things in the world, food, hospitality-related news. Once again, my name is Rich, and if you click play, I welcome you. And today we welcome somebody brand new to the show that's never been here. He's the host and the owner and the runner of GiuseppeEats YouTube channel and GiuseppeEats on IG. Giuseppe, what's going on, bro?
Hey, what's going on, Rich? I appreciate you having me on.
Yo, thank you for being so cool about it and for being so receptive to, my invitation. It's like a lot of people wouldn't be so open to the idea, like right off the bat. Thank you for that.
Yeah, no problem, man. I appreciate you reaching out, and I think I've watched a few of your shows, and definitely an interesting topic. So happy to jump in, share some of my thoughts, and excited to see what we're going to be talking about today.
So we got a lot to talk about, actually. But before we get into that, I do want to give the listeners a chance to get a feel for you, like who you are and like what you do and why you do it. So I did get a chance to watch a couple of your videos, and I love what I see. And right off bat, I could tell it was somebody who is passionate about the content, and didn't really care how many people watched it. They just wanted it out there, So talk to me.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, so I started GiuseppeEats, I think it's been 2 months now, and I was just honestly during this pandemic trying to find a way to help pass my time and stay busy. And, at the same time, something that I'm passionate about, the restaurant industry, they were struggling during these times, so I kind of use it as an opportunity to shed light and support and highlight some of these local restaurants that we have in the area. So what I do on YouTube at GiuseppeEats is do neighborhood food tours. So, pick a neighborhood that, more like an authentic New York City neighborhood, something that maybe not everyone knows about, and pick some of them, like my favorite restaurants, either that I've experienced or suggestions from friends in the neighborhoods or, places that I've wanted to check out. So I go and I taste some of the food and I highlight some of the restaurants. I try to do like 4 or 5 restaurants, per neighborhood. And, it was really to highlight, what's going on and shed light on some of these places that, need the support during these times. Some of these places that have been institutions in these neighborhoods for years and years that, are struggling to keep the business afloat. In places that if you're in New York City and you want to try something new, these are the places you should go. So that's kind of how it got.
We are now tasting Elsa, La Reina de Chicharrón, right here on St. Nicholas in between 173rd and 172nd. As the name shows, the queen of chicharrones. Put some lime over it. Let's just give it a try.
You kind of talk of you're in the business that I like to highlight. So I think it's going to be pretty cool to hear your perspective on some things.
So what was most interesting is you said that when you search out the spots that you're going to highlight in your videos, they're not necessarily places that get a lot of coverage in like magazines or on websites. They're like native spots that the native, people rave about, and they're hitting treasure troves, the little gems in the neighborhood.
Exactly, yeah. For an example, I lived in Washington Heights for about a year and a half, and there's some places there that are just like...
We're at Henan Fang Way on 41st Avenue, here to try their lamb and cumin stir-fried noodles. What's amazing about this place is the noodles are as fresh as can be. The man literally hand-pulled these noodles right as we ordered.
Elsa, La Reina, the Chicharrón, and those are places, like you mentioned, you're probably not going to see, on the magazines, or if you search New York City best restaurants on Google, tourists probably won't necessarily find those places, but they are places that are definitely worth getting on the A train and heading up from Times Square to, make a day out of it or whatever the case is. So I think, those are the places that, have a place in my heart and that, I want to make sure get some of the love. And like I said, for New York City people born and raised here or, certain neighborhoods that you're comfortable with, clearly some of these places are going to be first come to mind when you think of a certain neighborhood. But, this is more to kind of showcase to the people that, either they're visiting for a weekend or, maybe they just moved here and they need to know kind of what certain neighborhoods are about.
Because those kind of spots are the backbone of the neighborhoods. They play so much more than just a eating location or a place to purchase food. They're a social destination. It's a place for the community to congregate. That's positive. That's not necessarily a sporting event where you're encouraged to spend money. But here, at a restaurant, you're making nutritional decisions with family members, loved ones, significant others. And that's why restaurants are so crucial. So, a year ago, when we first started talking about the pandemic and the effects that it would have, I was saying that the pandemic will have effects mostly on the mom and pop restaurants. Those, and us as foodies will pay the most for it because we're losing diversity in the choices that we have when we go out to dine. What would still be there is the Arby's. What would still be there is the Sonic, the chain restaurants. They have multiple factors which make them perfectly suited for this kind of environment, but which is a complete downturn for the mom and pop stores, for the pizzerias. I remember when going out to a pizzeria and grabbing a slice of pizza was a special event. Like, you had to do something to earn that pizza, or you were celebrating something, and it was just a mind-blowing experience. And over the years, that experience got lessened and lessened, whether it be like through quality of food or through the quality of ingredients or the lack of publicity for the mom and pop stores, and the shift towards more commercialized ingredients and commercialized foods. And I understand why they're in place, to create some sense of normalcy. When it comes, like, you go to one Taco Bell and you buy something that's going to taste exactly how it tasted in another neighborhood. We get that, but what you lose, again, is a standardized recipe, but cooked in a more domestic setting that doesn't get approved by that corporate board. That's that feel for it. So that's why I commended you from the first time I seen you, for the first time I seen your work. And I think I commented on one of your videos. I said, listen, what you're doing here is crucial on so many levels that I couldn't even fit into a comment. I had to tell you in words because it's so monumental. Yes, we may cook the food, right? But the customers, the foodies, publicize our art, our work. This is the product that we serve to the people. And that's where I feel like the lines were getting blurred. There was less translucency throughout the entire process. It's crazy how people could drive cars, but they don't know how to, milk a cow or like, but it's something that I really hope to shed light on. A lot of the gray areas.
Yeah, exactly. I think, like you mentioned, they were played such an important role, these restaurants did, in these neighborhoods. And I think, unfortunately, it took this pandemic, to really highlight, like, how important these mom and pops places are. Because, like you mentioned, we lost that, like, social place to hang out at. We lost, going to see our server or bartender that we saw, every couple weeks, and then they know you by name. You kind of lost that sense of touch. And then also, it's not just these owners that were struggling. It's a lot of, their employees that at some of these places that have been, institutions in these neighborhoods for years. You might have someone's father who worked in a restaurant, and now, the child works in that restaurant. He's grown up. Like, it's not just these owners, which clearly, they put their names on a lease and they risk everything that they have to run these places. But, also all these employees, and you better than I do. You're talking busboys, servers, prep cooks, kitchen, like heads of the kitchen, phone people, hostess. Like, there is a lot of players involved in having a restaurant run successfully. And it's not just, those owners of the restaurants that were affected. It's like all these people that are potentially losing their livelihood and, the stress to kind of keep their family up and running. So, I think it took this, unfortunately, and I hope from here on out we appreciate these places as much as they deserve to be appreciated, because, they are such a vital role to not only keeping a community economically afloat, because so many people have jobs connected to that industry, but, also just like you said, the impact that they have, like socially and kind of just culturally in a neighborhood and in the city. So it's definitely something that I want to continue to highlight. And it's not just here in New York City. Clearly, greatest city in the world for sure, without a doubt. But think about it when you think about the number of cities in the country that are affected, number of cities in the world that have been affected by this. And I think it's really these small mom and pop restaurants and these hard workers that are kind of in and out every day, having this thing stay afloat and something to really appreciate from now on.
Well, it's interesting because you said it right. It's a chain effect. It's a domino effect. So the restaurant in the city has to close down. Now that may affect the purveyors in which they get their produce from. Now, let's say they had an outstanding bill before they was forced to be closed, legally forced to be closed. So now they have that outstanding bill. But guess what? The entire country has an outstanding bill. Everything. And they're not worrying about paying off that, that $2,000 worth of lettuce that may have came in or that poultry. They're worrying about their rent. They're worrying about their employees. You understand? Their Medicaid, their dental, their vision. These are the pressing issues. When it comes to, yes, it's all problematic, but you have to approach it in the terms of, what's the varying levels of severity? Like, what's prioritized?
Right.
What you're going to approach first. And taking care of the people first. And then paying off your bills. But not with me saying that, right? I understand that there's a huge elephant in the room in which you're encouraging people not to pay their bills. But I'm not. What I'm saying is we all lived through last year. And we're all currently still, in some sort of a haze this year.
For sure.
So it's of no surprise when people can't pay this. But now you're in the position of that purveyor. So let's say you have 3,000 restaurants or venues that you service. And of those 3,000, 2,000 of them can't pay off their bills, for a 6-month span. Now, they're in a position where they're defaulting on their loans because in the entire food chain, there is very few companies that have the liquid assets, flowing to weather this storm. Now, the corporate, of course, they dine on the tears of the poor people, and they wash their china in the working class in sweat. But quite literally. But they maybe have a month. Like they judge their books, and even hotels, right? You have some of the major hotels in the world. Like look at the Palisade Hotel, the Palace Hotel, right on 5th Avenue, in Lower Manhattan. They're talking about closing.
And which is crazy.
Yeah. A world-renowned hotel, 4-star hotel. I'm talking about a $300 minimum a night. Not including tax and every other fee that they hit you with in the world. So it doesn't discriminate when it comes to, what companies it affects or what corporations. And then you have the truck drivers that may deliver the produce as well, Then you have the farmer, etc. It goes down. It continues to go down. And because of the restrictions, people wasn't going to work, so you had produce rotting away in the fields. And it's not then that we see the effect. It's later down the line. It's a quarter, 2 quarters down in the fiscal year that we see these effects take place. Oh, wow, why is orange juice $7 a quart? This is why.
Exactly. Yeah, and it kind of is a sense of it being too late. And I mean, I guess it's just something that we haven't yet experienced, and we didn't really have much time to learn from it. But now that we see it, and we understand how it played out, I guess we have to like learn from that. And like you said, sometimes it takes 3 or 6 months to really understand the effect of what's going on today. But it's just a shame to see like so many people having to be affected by that chain reaction. It's like you said, it's not just the corporations. It's not McDonald's struggling. It's not these places that are in every city in the United States. And even when it comes to some of those purveyors, it's not like the small shop that delivers to 20 restaurants that the owner is pulling up to Hunts Point Market himself to get the produce. You know what I mean? Those are the people that are struggling because they probably had those ties to these mom and pop shops. They weren't delivering to, the hospitals or the McDonald's. And, unfortunately, like you mentioned, the people that are hard working themselves are the ones that are struggling the most from this. And some of those big corporations, unfortunately, they kind of got to take advantage of the little guys not being able to stay afloat this last year.
So you bring up an interesting point, right? Because it's actually a great segue into what we was actually come here to talk about, which is the delivery apps, and how a lot of critics and naysayers of the delivery apps say that they capitalized off of the pandemic quite aggressively, and it was quite crudely, like crude business tactics. Now, they tried to deflect some of that early on by waiving fees for restaurants, for service, for using their platforms. And that was crucial. They needed to do that. That was a PR must. To save face, those companies needed to do that. And as we continue to talk about stories, you start to see a trend in which they cover the hospitality industry, the food industry, the food service industry. It's very much so reacting. Like, it's a second thought in editors' minds. It's very much so like there as filler. It's bad when they put it after sports.
Right.
Like, if I'm reading about how bad an industry is doing after Tiger Woods, is a problem.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's like a part of that is, they only kind of want to highlight the type of news that they think is going to get them, clicks to their website or headlines or, what's going to bring more people to buy their paper or whatever the case may be. So it's unfortunate, like you said, and especially with these delivery apps, here being in New York City throughout the pandemic or for most of it, that was really the only way for some of these restaurants to survive. It was outdoor dine-in / takeout only. And, especially when it first hit, people really weren't eating outdoors. They were maybe getting a delivery every now and then, but maybe a little sketched out to get a delivery because we just were not understanding what we were dealing with. We were going to the grocery stores and wiping down all the products that we had with Lysol and stuff, that was not that long ago.
You had Lysol? Oh, man, you was fly. If you had Lysol at the beginning.
my neighborhood emptied out, man. All these people left, so I had CVS to myself. It was, I was taking advantage, thank goodness. No, but it's, so during those times, it was kind of hard people were a little sketched out to order from places because you just, you weren't sure. Everything was so new to us. You think back to like March and April, those first couple weeks of when everything kind of, hit the fan. But now, and as you mentioned, these delivery apps helped out the restaurants during those beginning times. But now, I mean, you're talking thousands of dollars of fees a month for some of these restaurants to use DoorDash, Seamless, Uber Eats. And they're taking like a lot off the top, and it's unfortunate. I think I have heard of one app that has been helpful, but it's mainly targeted towards pizzerias. I don't know if you've heard of the Slice app, but apparently they work really closely with like these mom and pop pizzerias, and like they don't charge a high fee at all for these places. And hopefully there's more apps like that to come in the future. But honestly, for us, if I want a local Thai restaurant one night, and I don't, want to go out to grab it, we're so kind of, it's institutionalized in our head to just go on an app long ago are the days where you would call a restaurant. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
you have to have cash for when they come and drop it off, or you got to like sit through 15 minutes of giving your credit card information over the phone. It's just, and those places, they really took advantage of it. And it's unfortunate for these restaurants. And I try to do my best now, whenever we do order, to call the place and like ask them to deliver it on their own.
When was the last time you seen a takeout menu?
Oh yeah, no,
Right?
no such thing. Yeah, they got the little thing to put your camera on, and it pulls it up on the phone for you.
Scan it, beep. Yo,
Yeah, the QR code.
You know what? Last week I was at my father's house and he broke out a Chinese food menu. One of the rectangle. I said, "Holy crap!" I was like, "Yo," I was like, "Did you gotta blow the dust off of it?" Like,
Yeah, seriously. I mean, you remember back in the day though? Let me get like an L7. Like,
yeah,
like,
yeah. Hell yeah! He was like, "Yo, look, that's enough of that free soda, right?" Like, yo, it's none of that now. I think now you need like 15 cash for a free soda with some of these deals.
No.
But when it comes to the apps, right? There was a couple reasons why I felt it wasn't a feasible future for the restaurant industry unless it had some major changes, right? And it was this. So on top of the fee that you said they would charge, and varied apps had varying different charges, but the baseline, the general consensus was about 30%. And that's 30% of the final price. So you have the restaurant that has to make their profit, pay their employees to make the food, purchase the products, and then pay the delivery person, not the delivery person, but pay the fee, all out of the price that it costs them that they're charging you.
Right.
So for some restaurants, being even as an option on delivery apps is purely for public service, for neighborhoods, and for brand recognition, just so they keep their name out there. The second thing is when it comes to branding, it's for restaurants that's not a major chain that don't have a certain threshold of establishments. They're fighting the algorithm, similar to what our videos do on YouTube. The restaurants post on the delivery apps currently is consistently fighting the app's algorithm for placement on the list of options for diners.
Yep.
So if you're hungry, you'll scroll past, maybe 150 different restaurants before you find that restaurant you're looking for, just because it places low on the algorithm for that delivery app. So they're constantly trying to fight for brand recognition, on that platform, so that they could be found or even be an option on some people, and instead of option number 1096. How many people's actually going to get there?
Yeah.
So to rebut that, I'd say they have apps that, like you say with the pizza, that specify in certain foods. So if you go to, let's say, a DoorDash, you'll find predominantly fast food restaurants. If you go to a delivery app like Caviar, you'll find, that vegan Thai spot. You'll find the sushi and sashi stores, and stuff like that. Oh, wow. I didn't even know we talked that long. So, because it just sent us the reminder about, like, how long the duration of the call was supposed to be. So they're fighting that, and then now once the delivery apps get installed in the restaurants, and I'm telling you this with experience, the infrastructure, like the property management system that a lot of the delivery apps have in place, just simply can't take the demand for the restaurant. And maybe restaurants that only get 50 orders, the system has difficulty keeping up with it.
Oh, wow.
And now you have a spot like mine that was completely transitioned into takeout. So all of our orders come via the machines. And so we do about 1,000, 1,020 Grubhub orders a day.
Wow.
And the first 5 months was just hell. I'm talking about the system would get backlogged orders in the system. So you're standing at the machine like, man, I'm not getting no orders. And then you would get a flash of like 50 orders that's been backed up. So the infrastructure just isn't sophisticated enough to make it a feasible thing for restaurants. So it made me formulate this theory that the delivery apps is best in the hands of the consumer, and not try to be implemented by the restaurants. The restaurants shouldn't be given a Grubhub account and allowed to, deliver, take out, or establish a ghost kitchen.
Yeah.
Because the system just can't take the strain. Now, it's gotten better. The broadband and the infrastructure has gotten better. But it's nowhere near the needs of service. How about that, that restaurant on 7th Avenue in Midtown at 6 o'clock? Can it take that rush? And, not only did that owner have to make the conversion, which some restaurants simply can't. They can't make the conversion either from a cuisine standpoint, a restaurant, kitchen setup standpoint, or a staff standpoint. Maybe their staff can't handle the transition into making it, And then when you do a predominantly takeout only menu, now you come with the extra cost of takeout containers. I was floored by some of the figures when I seen like how much places had to take on for styrofoam containers and plastic cups and stuff like that. That was just an expenditure that was non-existent.
Yeah, it was never there before.
Months ago. So that comes out of thin air, Then you have the heaters for the lamps and the tents that they got to put out in front of their restaurants. If they want restaurant service, that cost has to come out of thin air.
Yep. Yeah, and they're already taking, especially, in terms of the delivery apps, now your profit margins are just completely different. You either have to raise your prices on the app, which, is going to result in less orders from consumers because they don't want to pay $3 or $4 more per each meal, but that's really the only way that the restaurant could make that money up. And then on top of that, if these apps mess up and my Grubhub order is an hour and a half when it said it was going to be here in 45 minutes, who does that consumer now deem as the bad guy? You know what I mean? That they get mad at the restaurant. They're not like, oh, this is Grubhub's fault. So it's tough. It's tough. And like you said, the restaurants were left with kind of that only option. And it was either get with it or close the doors for right now.
So I can't tell you how much heat I've taken over the last couple of weeks because of that. Now, this was my thing. They say, Rich, but restaurants that never opened are still opening come 2021. They're still, putting out their red carpet events. And my thing is, it takes, years to open up even a bakery, a small bakery. It takes planning. You have to get bank loans. And a lot of that ball was rolling for years when the pandemic hit. Now you tell a potential owner, that their hotel can't open up. Not to open up the hotel, or if they still want to open up their hotel.
Definitely want to go out to eat. I'd want to eat indoors. It's 20 degrees out. It's freezing. We've had a horrible winter here. We want to eat indoors. Now we're allowed to eat indoors. And it's like you just hope that, that service staff, the kitchen staff in the back, and, everyone that has something to do with that restaurant and getting that final product to your table to eat, is doing the right things and following the things that they should right now, which, I have the mindset that they all are. I highly doubt that they all are, but, I've gotten to a point where it's not going to deter me anymore. I think if I want to go out to eat and I want to support certain places, that's my mindset, is everyone's going to be doing the right thing and I'm going to be able to enjoy myself. And that's what I've been wanting to do for 11 months now. Just to have that sense of normalcy in New York City to, go out to eat with my fiance inside a restaurant.
Because, that's why I've been encouraging people, look, believe it or not, since last year, since, November, look, go to that hotel and book a room, put, even if they're not allowing reservations, put a reservation to make a reservation, at a hotel. If not for anything else, for your sanity, just for your mental sanity, to say, look, there's a flag in the sand somewhere in the distance, and there it is right there. I'm gonna make that date, that time where I'm gonna go to Costa Rica or go to Argentina or go to Peru. I'm gonna book that hotel, book that lodging trip.
Yeah.
And then at the same time, that does a lot for the hotel industry, because then they see the analytics. Because remember, we're talking corporate. All they see is numbers, black and white, pages.
Yeah.
So they're like, look, people was clearly interested in going out and going to hotels again and booking trips and traveling because we're getting reservations. That's why Hilton did such a grand virtual opening, last year, when it comes to they was like, oh, we know we can't physically have you in the hotel, but we're allowing you, we're accepting reservations now. It was a test of the consumer confidence.
Right. I think you saw that a lot in the restaurant industry as well. There was, a lot of people to support these places were buying gift cards, and saying listen, I know I can't use this gift card right now, but I'm going to have this gift card available, in a couple months, and I'm excited to get back, and that's cash on hand for a lot of these restaurants that they didn't have, just to keep them, going into that next month.
That's right. So, just to bring it back to the main question, how feasible are delivery apps for restaurants moving forward as the savior of the industry? My answer is not at all. It's not at all the answer. I feel that we've reached a point where it's always going to be a part of our industry now.
Yeah.
It's just too comfortable in people's minds. It's too embedded, like you were saying, ingrained in people's minds, that app, that sensation of not having to leave their house and just hear that click and that confirm order, get that confirm order message. But, I would be remiss. Any closing thoughts on that one?
Yeah, I just think, for it to continue and for the restaurants to at least be able to take advantage of these places as well and not kind of get, damaged from having to have such a low profit on some of these menu items. I just think the delivery apps could continue if there was a massive amount of change into their strategy on how to run these apps. I think it makes it very convenient for people, like you said, but there has to be something done where it's half the fees they're being charged, or they figure out a way where the delivery driver is on staff at the restaurant, and that takes away the need for these apps to have the delivery drivers on their cost as well. And maybe we have a delivery driver at the restaurant and he does the Grubhub and DoorDash orders for everything that's coming in. So I think there's options moving forward, because like you said, they're not going anywhere. It's just hopefully there's other apps that come out, and I've heard of some that might be coming out soon, and I'd be happy to speak about it whenever it happens, where they're more restaurant friendly, where it's we're not taking 30%, 40% from these places, to go deliver their food. Because essentially, that's what they're doing. Like you said, it's marketing for the restaurant, and they're delivering food. It's something that I think the restaurant could figure out to handle, that aspect at least.
Yeah, because look, we still know restaurants in the neighborhoods that have their own delivery person on staff. They maybe have 1-2 people with a bike that's been doing it for 6, 7, 8, 9 years.
Yep.
And that's their job. That's their gig. They get paid whatever they get paid plus their tips. And some restaurants could do that. And those are the restaurants that haven't necessarily made the conversion. I'm glad I could talk about this, because there was a theory I had a couple years ago, really now at this point, where I felt that there was, an initiative to push, PMS systems into, every crevice of business aspects when it comes to financial transactions. So where you would have that thrift store that would just do, their manual system, punching in on their cashiers, they would have, it would all be digitalized. And so they could, down the pipeline, feed it into like digital transactions, and you have your, pay as you go and, cash back and crap like that. That's in all the Dwayne Reeds and stuff. So that the mom and pop stores, so that the nail salons, could make that transition. And talking about, corner store transitions, for a later episode, I would love to talk to you about, bodegas compared to corner stores.
Yeah.
And the cultural and significance amongst that. But I don't want to get too deep into that one. But yeah, that's I do feel like you make a great point. It does fall more on the delivery apps to be more what's the word I'm looking for? Morally responsible?
Yeah, I guess.
Because that's the only thing they owe anyone. Like just be a nice guy, Just play nice. Like I don't know.
Yeah, unfortunately, we haven't seen much of that. When it comes to like these corporates and business decisions. So we'll see. But I do think they owe, something to be put in place, whether it's legislation or what, to these apps that we have to let the restaurants make up some of the suffering that they've had in the past year, moving forward. So we'll see. Time will tell, and hopefully as things get back to normal, we'll be able to see some of these places getting back to their regular kind of business operations as well, and hopefully we see these places succeed.
You're absolutely right. And I was not prepared for this conversation whatsoever, brother. Listen, I love talking to you. It's just the conversation is there, it flows like water.
Yep.
I think we're on like 45 minutes. Almost an hour right now.
Yeah, that's pretty long.
Yeah. I'm gonna see if I have all of this stuff recorded. And to be honest with you, I'm not even stressing if I don't, because this is huge, just for what we were able to accomplish and just being able to establish something between us, you know what I mean? And knowing that we could talk and flow and conversate and hold topics.
Definitely, man. I appreciate you again reaching out and asking to have me on and having me on. And, we'll definitely jump on here again whenever you want to bring me in for a segment or something. I'm happy to jump on.
Oh, yeah, because look, I'm always looking for more people to join the conversation. When I have topics, that's huge, I definitely want to hear more than just my voice, chiming in on it. Because that's really what we're here for. We're here to create that community of people that have similar interests. And so that when these topics come up, and I want to build an environment that everyone feels empowered enough to talk and to chime in on, because that's what food is all about. This is what we was talking about. The communion of it. It's something that came from when we used to huddle around fires when we were cavemen, and cook our food. It's just, that's what it's meant for. And that's the disconnect that I feel in my heart that the consumer don't have, no more. And that's why I felt it was necessary for me to start talking and start spreading my voice and sharing this information. So thank you, bro, for being so cool about it, for being such an awesome guy, and to be so open to new people. Because
yeah, man, I appreciate it. Like I said, this is something to share. I think we have different perspectives on it, which is awesome because, you know, that's kind of what you're doing day in, day out. That's your hustle. That's what you've picked as you know, your way of life. And I think that's a very important piece of the puzzle in our communities. And, you know, for me as a consumer, and I think I mentioned this earlier, you know, or maybe when we spoke earlier in the day, actually, this is something that I was also raised with. And I think that's why I have a passion for it. You know, a lot of my cousins, whether they're in New Jersey, have family in Florida, this is their bread and butter. This is how they bring food to the table, is owning restaurants, you know, 6 days a week, 7 days a week, 10, 12 hours a day, no vacations, you know, you don't trust to leave it to nobody else. Like, this is your life. And for, you know, something out of their control, let's say, or any of these restaurants to affect it that much, I think that's where kind of my passion comes up. And I would just want to highlight some of these places that, you know, deserve the spotlight because they're one of a kind. This is a one of a kind city with one of a kind food, and you know, these neighborhoods are amazing, and I think everyone should go out and check it out. And if you want to watch my videos, we mentioned it earlier, I'm on YouTube, Giuseppe Eats, on Instagram as well, and hopefully you'll see more of me right here with Rich.
Giuseppe Eats. Giuseppe, thank you, bro. Thank you.
Yeah, my pleasure, man.
And we out of here. Let me stop recording.